Hi, time for another update, 18th of July 2018. And sadly, the main news is some tow rags came and interfered with our shed again. They even left the brick that they used. The new window that Chris put in on this side, they've tried to smash in through that. I don't know why, because it's got such small panes. I think they were just being destructive. So yesterday, instead of planting leeks and making a video about the state of the garden, I got Chris to come over and we spent a couple of hours securing the shed. So there's one window, piece of wood screwed over it. There's the other window, another piece of wood screwed over it. The only way they could get in now is they could kick down the door or smash it up. I think it was the smashing that actually alerted the neighbour. We found out that the neighbour down the bottom had heard them trying to smash our shed to pieces and had shouted at them what were they doing, and they had scarpered. So basically it's thanks to our neighbour that our shed is still there. I mean, if they got in, they could easily have stolen everything of value, torched the thing, I don't know what. So here's the apple tree that was so full of blossoms a couple of months ago, and now it's full of little apples. And the Warwickshire Drupal plum tree is full of plums as well. A couple of days ago I changed the sticky paper and the pheromone thing in there. It was full of moths, and I hope this will stop the plum moths from eating all the plums. Whether the predatory kids will destroy them is another matter, but still. Am I bitter? What, me? We finally cleared the weeds and got the mulch down around the josterberries and got the net on top. The net is now coming off again because we picked most of the josterberries. Just a few little ones left. The broad beans we planted, we've eaten most of them already. They were very good. I don't know, I get the impression that broad beans nowadays are actually sweeter. They may have been bred to be sweeter than the ones I remember from childhood, which were really quite unpleasant. Or maybe my tastes have changed. And those are the brassicas that were just little tiny plants under the nets. I had to take the nets off because they grow too big for them. So they are getting attention from the cabbage white butterflies. But at least they had a good start. I planted 3 squashes on my compost heap. Look, I put some mulch on that as well. And they are just spreading everywhere. It's very gratifying. I've even got a nice squash forming there. That's cucumbers. I got 3 cucumbers off one plant, the other one got chewed up and died. The ones in the conservatory are doing very much better than that. This is the second lot of onions that we planted, even later than the first lot. The first lot over here is doing okay, actually. The only thing is, we kept finding 1 or 2 lying on the ground. And I thought maybe it was the dog. I throw the tennis ball on the allotment and the dog chases after it, and I thought maybe he just galloped over these onions and kicked them up. Now, of course, I'm beginning to think some kid's been wandering over here and just wantonly pulled them up and dropped them on the ground. You could turn very bitter, couldn't you? Those are golden beetroots, carrots, and the parsnips. Despite my best efforts, I've had 3 separate goes at planting rows of parsnips and they just haven't germinated. There's a big gap there. These are beans, they're very patchy as well. I think a bird came and pulled up the seedlings when they were young because there are big holes in my plantings. These are beans for drying. I can't even remember what kind they are now. I think there may be 2 kinds here. I had enormous trouble getting my beans to germinate this year as well, so I didn't have as many as I was hoping to have. You just put them in the pots and keep them warm and they don't come up, and 2 weeks later you start to dig them up and they're not there anymore. There's the sweet corn that in the last video they were just little weedy seedlings. I actually had to grow some more and fill in the gaps of those as well because I think the birds pulled them out. One of them is flowering, and behind them is a second lot of broad beans, the little continental ones. I grew those from seed. I thought it might be too hot for them to make beans, but they have actually started to make beans. These are the climbing peas. They're doing okay. My frame was a bit disastrous. It's kind of holding them up though. what happened down here was a lot of peas were lost because when the pods become very dry, they just split open and drop the peas on the ground. So I've started to pick them already, even though they're not quite dried out. The strawberries, well, I don't think we watered them enough, to be honest. This is my first seed bed, parsnips and carrots. The parsnips have just been appalling, and the carrots, well, they germinated eventually. They're doing okay, they're not very big yet. I water them maybe twice a week, which may not be enough, it's so very dry. More dry beans and runner beans. And the runner beans are full of black flies. This has got to be the dry weather. Chris's 2 rows of peas did really well. They all seemed to ripen at the same time, despite one row having been planted after the other. And we weeded them carefully and watered them well, and they've had masses of peas. The asparagus is full of asparagus beetles. Chris sprayed them once with soap solution. And I came back the next day and there were masses of them having at it. This is some oats that I haven't pulled out. This is the consequence of using straw as a mulch. You get masses and masses of cereal growing up. I could try letting it ripen and threshing it, but I don't know if I really want to be bothered. The gooseberries had a good crop. The birds took about half of them, and by the time I arrived, they'd taken all the red ones, but there were still quite a lot of green ones. And I made 7 pots of jam from them. Then over here we have the potatoes. 3 rows of these have done okay. The 4th row, God knows what he planted here, but they're not happy. I made a second compost heap, or berm as I like to call it, from mainly the leftover brassica stalks from the, what were they? The broccoli, the flowering broccoli. Topped off with all the grass that I had to dig up from everywhere. This is my tomato grove. I gave my neighbour, the one with the wood chips, some extra cucumber plants that I couldn't find anywhere to plant, and so he gave me a little tray full of tiny, tiny tomato plants. And so I planted them all out. I've got about 16 plants, and they have grown, although they were very small when I got them and it was quite late. And yeah, if the blight doesn't get them, we're going to have lots of cherry tomatoes. This is a couple of other squash plants that I planted on little heaps of compost, and they haven't become nearly as vigorous as the ones over there on the big compost heap. This is a single courgette plant that I got from the garden centre. I didn't get from the label that they were going to be yellow, but quite interesting. And next to the squash plant, here is... oh! Another neighbour gave me this. I was getting rid of some sweet corn plants I hadn't got room for because I had to grow a second lot to fill the gaps. And he gave me this, which he said was a lemon flavoured tomato. It doesn't look like a tomato, it's a solanaceae. And it's got little yellow flowers. No sign of any fruits yet. I just hope it has some. I almost think it's a pepper, but anyway, we'll see. The French beans had a hard start as well. I had to regrow and plant again, and some of them are vigorous and some of them are not. So I've got my main crop sweet corn on that side, and over on this side I filled the gap. I had a huge amount of straw covered ground. I thought I'll try some popcorn. And this has germinated, well, no, it was germinated. What's happened again is that a lot of the plants have just been pulled up. So I have big gaps. It remains to be seen how well they'll grow and how well they'll pollinate each other. This one here, it looks as though some bird has come back repeatedly and repeatedly picked off the tops of the leaves. And I keep watering it and looking at it, and it never seems to get any bigger. I had a row of Lollo Rosso lettuces, there's just 2 left. They are living proof that watering twice a week is not good enough in dry conditions because they're rather bitter, but they're okay. And behind them, my cauliflowers and cabbages that I planted a bit later, and they're doing very well as well. And over here, a bit of spare land. I'm thinking of putting the leeks here, but there are odd potatoes We had potatoes here last year and they look more healthy than the ones that we planted this year. So this is what happened last year. The volunteer potatoes actually produced a very good crop of potatoes, and by the time we got to the main crop they were all scabby and disgusting and full of rat holes and slug holes. So it's worth nurturing your volunteers even if they are in awkward places. My neighbour, who was keen on the wood chip mulch, he's got things growing on his allotment despite the wood chips. I don't know, I haven't kind of gone and inspected them, but his beans are quite high up the bean poles, like mine. They've got flowers on them. He's been there every day watering, I think. I haven't been quite so dutiful. I think I can't have been doing it more than twice a week or once every 3 days or so. And he also commented, when we said to him our shed had been attacked, he said yes, his greenhouse has been attacked. They've ripped the tomatoes off the tomato plants and dropped them on the ground. So it does make you paranoid. I mean, what can you do? You have to live with it. And it's nasty. It shows the nasty underbelly of humanity, which, and it's only the kind of the tip of the iceberg. Mixing my metaphors here. It could be a lot worse, you know. You imagine living in a society where there's a total breakdown of law and order and people are constantly vandalising and smashing up and attacking, and oh God, it's so depressing the way the world is. So back to the subject of allotments and planting things. I'll go and find a space to plant my leeks and give them a good watering, and I'll see you later. I couldn't just dip holes in the ground for the leeks. I had to hack them out of the dry clay with the trowel, and so I've filled them up with water as much as I can, but the surrounding soil is obviously so dry that they're not going to get so much moisture unless I keep watering them. See you next time. Bye.